Yo, what is up guys? Delboy here, aka Blue Collar Sports TV. Hopefully you guys are doing well. If you're new here, smash that like, hit subscribe, all of that good stuff. Apologies for the lack of content recently. There honestly hasn't been too much going on, or at least not enough going on that I'm interested in regards to boxing. Having said that, in the last day or so we've had the announcement that we have a rather interesting fight taking place at super lightweight, going down on the 31st of January. Now, from what I see, a venue still has to be announced, but it's looking likely for New York, on DAZN by looks of things as well. Shakur Stevenson versus Teofimo Lopez at 140. Teofimo's WBO super lightweight title on the line. A fight in which has been spoken about for several years now, Two guys who are in and around their primes. These are the sort of fights in which we need more of in boxing ultimately. The fight in and of itself is a fight that I am interested in. Teofimo Lopez is coming off a good win over Arnold Barboza. A fight in which wasn't exactly amazing to watch, but he was pretty switched on in that fight and performed well. And Shakur Stevenson is coming off a win over William Zepeda. Entertaining fight by Shakur Stevenson standards, and a good win for him as well. So, both guys would be coming into this fight off the back of good performances. And it's an interesting one because both guys bring elements in which I think could potentially trouble one another, particularly Stevenson in regards to what I perceive to be Teofimo's weaknesses. But Teo himself brings attributes that Stevenson hasn't really seen in the ring either. The first one being with Teo is like his speed and power. Teofimo's not a guy with a heavy work rate, but he's very quick-handed when it comes to throwing single shots. He's also quite an astute counter-puncher. Again, does that with speed, does it with power. I know people are going to say his knockouts have dried up in recent years as he stepped up in competition, but listen, I think it's still pretty clear to see that he hits hard enough to keep people honest. And against a guy like Shakur, whose chin, in my opinion, is still somewhat untested. And I say I have reservations because, Shakur himself after that Jeremiah Nakatila fight, he basically made reference of Nakatila's power. He felt it, didn't like what he felt, hence the way he fought. And, Teofimo is the first guy who's got a combination of speed and power that Shakur has fought. So I think that dynamic is very interesting. The issue here, I think overall stylistically this one does favour Shakur Stevenson. I do believe, and I've said this for quite some time, when it comes to Teofimo Lopez, if you are the type of fighter who's going to stand in front of him or try to pressure him, I think that's when Teofimo and his best attributes really shine through. When you come onto him, when you're aggressive and you leave the openings, Teo can light you up. He can counter you with hard single shots. He can really take the play away with those sort of stinging quick counters. If you stand in front of the guy, he's got the speed and agility and explosiveness to make it tell also. Ultimately, if you don't give him some sort of movement side to side or head movement or going back, if you don't give him that sort of movement, I think Teo's always in the fight, basically. But Shakur Stevenson, as we know, has displayed very good lateral movement, back foot boxing. On occasion, he overdoes it, of course, with excessive movement. But there's no doubt that is one of his strongest attributes, no doubt whatsoever. And the issue I have with Teofimo Lopez, and that I've long had with Teofimo Lopez, despite his level of talent and natural athleticism and power and speed, I've always felt he's the type of guy who's going to struggle when it comes to creating his own openings. And when he's forced to fight on the front foot without wanting to, I think that's when you'll see Teofimo Lopez really start to look a little predictable and not cumbersome as such, but a lack of ideas, a lack of invention on that front foot, a lack of idea in regards to how to create his own openings while pressuring, how to get a slickster like Shakur to bite and throw or hold his feet to then capitalise. I don't see that sort of subtlety to Teofimo's game. You know, he doesn't feint enough in my opinion, particularly when he fights on the front foot. I don't think he is astute in general at generating power when he's coming forwards. And overall, like I say, I think his kryptonite is always going to be a guy who can box and move, who can just pop the jab consistently, move left, move right, move back, head movement as well. I think Teo's always going to struggle against that guy, personally. And, you know, even when we was talking about a potential Haney versus Teofimo fight, when Haney's reputation was, you know, just following the Ryan Garcia fight, even back then, I was saying that, yeah, listen, Haney, his confidence could be shot at that time, but he's still got the style to really, really, really trouble Teofimo Lopez. And I think Shakur has that same style, but I think he's more skilled than Devin Haney personally. I think he's got more to his game, more to his toolbox. I think he can do more than Devin Haney personally. Topping it off, of course, you know, Shakur is also a southpaw to bring that into the equation as well. So yeah, listen, stylistically, I do think this fight favours Shakur Stevenson. If you're asking me who I would put my money on if I had to, it would be Shakur Stevenson. And yeah, it's just, I think this one is just a style thing. I just think it favours Shakur. What he does well, comparison to Teofimo's weaknesses, I think they match up well for Shakur, personally. And yeah, like I say, if I were to bet money, I would bet on Shakur Stevenson, personally. There are a couple of, like I say, things to consider, though. Shakur would be going to 140. Again, we haven't seen him fight a quick-handed puncher like Teofimo. I know there's debate whether he can really punch at 140, but I think it's safe to say that Teofimo would be the hardest guy that Shakur's fought. He's not really fought many punchers, and combining that with Teo's speed, I think that's what makes Teo interesting in this fight. But I think him in this fight is going to be dependent on him hurting Shakur. If he doesn't hurt Shakur, I've got to be honest, I can't see him winning this fight, personally. I just think he'll be a step behind Shakur. I think he can make rounds competitive, you know. I do think his boxing ability at times is a little underrated, Teofimo, just in regards to his outboxing skills. But yeah, I just think Shakur does it better, personally, and I think the styles favour him in this bout. But listen, I hope this one happens. It is scheduled for 31st of January, so not even a long wait either, only a couple of months away. It feels a little bit too quick, you know, for a fight of that magnitude to come together. So I do have my doubts whether this one even happens, I've got to be honest. I have my doubts. It kind of came out of left field, to me at least. And yeah, for a 2-month window, like 2 months' time, it's happening very quick, isn't it? It's happening very quick. Plus, you know, Teofimo himself isn't exactly the most reliable guy in the world. So, listen, I do still wonder whether this fight happens, but I'm glad that it's been scheduled. Let's just hope we get there. And hopefully we have a strong undercard as well. I don't know whether this is part of a Riyadh season cards. Who knows? But listen, hopefully we get a couple of decent fights on the undercard as well. And yeah, this one's interesting to me. This one's interesting. Like I say, I make Shakur favourite, but I see Teofimo as live in this one. I think he's live. Anyway, share your thoughts. Do you think it's going to happen? And if you do, who do you think is favourite? Who do you think is going to win and why? Share your thoughts below. Beanie Guy Del Boy. Peace.